guys, welcome back to Cardz TV. This is Mary, and we're going to be doing two things today. We'll be making a Thanksgiving card, and while we're doing that, I'm going to try and answer some of the questions that you've sent me recently. So, to get started with the card, we'll be using the Thanksgiving cartridge, and I got this a couple of years ago. Never have used it, but it's got some beautiful things on here for Thanksgiving. We'll be using this Indian corn right here. And this is a very simple cartridge to use, and I'll show you when I show you the image after I've cut it out. We'll be using elegant edges for a mat for our Indian corn. And the stamp set we'll be using is one of mine. This is Cardz TV, Thankful for You. And of course on the inside we'll put Happy Thanksgiving, and on the front we'll use Harvest Blessings with the Indian corn. This will be the base of our card, and we're just going to cut this in half. So half of 11 is 5 1/2. And if you look right over here on the arm, you'll see there's 5 1/2. So I line up the edge of my cardstock right there on the 5 1/2. Bring my blade up and make a cut. And now this is 5 1/2 by 8 1/2. Now to get this to an A2 size card, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, I'm just going to fold it in half. Now you can score it if you want to. So half of 8 1/2 would be 4 1/4. So you can just line it up in your trimmer, or if you have a scoreboard, do that, and then score it at 4 1/4. But I'm just going to fold this in half. So we're going to cut our second layer, or our first mat actually, to go on our card. Our card is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so we want to come in 1/4 of an inch. So that would be 4 by 5 1/4. Let me get this arm back out. We'll make our first cut at 4. You just line the edge of your paper up on the 4, right up there. Scoot this down. There's your 4. And make your first cut. And that's how you get a nice straight edge. Then you turn it, and here's 5 1/4. And we'll make this cut. Then I'll layer this on my brown card, and I'm going to go ahead then and cut my next layer, which will be going down 1/4 of an inch, 3 3/4 by 5. And I'll go ahead and cut this and get all this layered together, and then we'll come back and I'll show you the image that I've chosen for the card. Now I've got my card base all ready with my beautiful mats adhered down. I love those rich colors, and I want to add a mat for my image. So I pulled out elegant edges, and on page 29 I found this shape that I really like. So this one's called Leaves. I cut the oblong out of ivory cardstock, and this was cut at 4 inches. And I cut the shadow, which is right down here, out of the same brown as the card. This is also at 4 inches. Before I adhere these together though, I want to take some Tim Holtz Tea Dye Distress ink, and I want to ink around this mat to give it a distressed look. Now it's all adhered together, and I'm going to put this on 2 thicknesses of foam tape, but I'm going to go ahead and add my image to it before I do that. And in the Thanksgiving cartridge, I thought this Indian corn was so pretty. Now I cut the background for the corn right here out of brown at 3 1/2 inches, and then there's just the one more layer. You cut the corn out of 2 different colors. After it cuts this first ear of corn right here, you can hit stop to get this marigold, and then put in your next color, and you can cut that. And this is just out of some craft cardstock, and I've inked around all of my corn with some Tim Holtz Tea Dye Distress ink, and I'm going to take my 2-way glue pen and get this layered together and add it to the mat, and then we'll put that on the front of our card. Isn't that going to be pretty? Love those colors. Got my corn layered on, and I've got this on 2 thicknesses of foam tape. we're going to go ahead and take the backing off and add this to the front. And then we'll add our sentiment. And then we'll get the inside done. And I just want to center this on the sides, and I'm going to move it up a little bit closer to the top to leave room for the sentiment at the bottom. I just love these fall colors. That's so pretty. Now for my sentiment, I used that same Thankful for You stamp set, and I took an EK Success punch and punched out this middle label size. If you don't have one of those, you can use lacy labels, or you can just cut out a rectangle. I punched my sentiment down close to the bottom because I'm just going to tuck this right up underneath, right here. I had some jute in the color I wanted, so I just tied a bow and added it to the top of my Indian corn with a glue dot, and I really like that. Adds just a little bit more texture. Now for the inside of our card, I've cut a piece of the craft cardstock at 3.5 by 4 1/4, and another piece of the marigold yellow at 3 1/4 by 4. I'm going to layer these two together. And I had another little piece of the plaid, and I cut this at 3/4 of an inch by 3 3/4, and I'm going to add that right down there, and it just hangs over just a little bit. I'll get these adhered together and put on the inside. Now for my sentiment, I took another piece of the ivory cardstock and I stamped Happy Thanksgiving using the Thankful for You Cardz TV stamp set. Now this punch on the front has these little notches on the sentiment on the front, but this punch was too short for this sentiment. So to make it look the same, after I stamped it, I cut it down, and I'm just taking a little circle punch, and you turn it upside down and you put the corner in. Can you see that? Just a little bit of the corner, and make sure you've got it even and centered. And now I have a matching sentiment just like on the front, but I did it myself. See how the corners match? So I'm going to adhere all this down. I'm going to ink around this sentiment with the Tim Holtz Tea Dye Distress ink, and then I'll add that on the inside. So come on back and we'll take a look at our finished card inside and out. Here's our finished Thanksgiving card using elegant edges and the Thanksgiving cartridge and Cardz TV Stamps Thankful for You. I think it turned out really pretty, and it's a fairly simple card, so it would be easy to mass produce this one if you wanted to send out a lot of them. Here's the front, and I kept the inside pretty simple. Just as Happy Thanksgiving, and you've got plenty of room up here to write a sentiment. Thanks so much for coming by today, guys. I hope to see you again really soon. Bye now.